Hamas military group decided to launch a coordinated attack aimed towards Israel through sea, air, and land. Now, the reasons go way back to when Jesus was crucified, because allegedly the Jews had a hand in Jesus' crucifixion. I am V, and this is what's happening. Now, due to the alleged role on Jesus' death, they were subjected to religious bigotry, proscribed from owning property, economically marginalized, and socially outcasted. In the 19th century, the Jews decided that Jerusalem was going to be their home, a home that was not long-lived because they snuck into it and they were driven out from it during a period between 732 BC and 70 CE. Now, they're driven away from the kingdom of Israel, the kingdom of Judah. At some point, Jerusalem was destroyed. And eventually, at 132 CE, the Bar Kokhba revolt. The Jews decided to rebel against the Roman emperor, and the war went on for 4 years. Eventually, they were denied access to Jerusalem, and the Romans renamed the region Syria Palestina. The Jewish were forced to leave and to seek asylum in the diaspora, while in the region there was an Arab Empire uprising led by Damascus and Baghdad. The Ottoman Turks occupied the region in 1516. The people over here now identified themselves as Palestinians, most of whom are Muslims and some were Christians. This never dismissed the dream of the Jewish wanting to come back home. Now, what they did back in the diaspora was they formed alliances with the Western region people. There was a movement called the Zionism. This was supposed to be a movement that would help them facilitate from migrating from diaspora back to Palestine. Now, Russia Empire was the biggest region to have housed the Jewish as a diaspora. When they had a revolution and it failed, the Jewish from the Russian Empire and the European region decided to migrate from that place back to Palestine. Now, back here, they were under the Ottoman rule, and their national language was Hebrew. In 1918, the Ottoman Empire was defeated, which led to the region being occupied by British and France. The Jewish leaders helped Britain win the First World War. In that case, the British owe them one. In 1917, there was a declaration made by Alpha Baffa, who was then the Foreign Secretary, which stated that there will be a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. It also said that the British will see to it that this declaration is facilitated. On the other hand, the French had their own motives to wanting a home for the Jews. In 1799, Napoleon offered Palestine as a home for the Jews only if they would allow him to rule over them and also if they would help him invade Egypt. Now, the Jewish state did not materialize under France. If the Balfour Declaration was meant to sit, it meant that the Arab and the Christian that were occupying this land before would be misplaced. And them too played a big role into winning the First World War. Now, what will the British do? They decided to play two sides to appeal both of them. The first thing they did was to minimize the migration of the Jewish back into Palestine. Now, this did not last because in the 1930s, they started fighting publicly. During the Second World War, there was a mass slaughter of the Jewish people in different regions. Now, they were killed, slaved, and starved to death. This was called the Holocaust. By the end of the Second World War, the Jewish realized that the British still did not want to leave Jerusalem. Now, what they did, they decided to attack their troops so that they may leave. Now, this issue was then presented to the newly formed United Nations. In 1947, the UN voted to partition Palestine. We would have an Arab state and a Jewish state. The Palestinians were not happy about this because the Jewish were given a bigger chunk of land, having the smallest population. That did not stop the Jews because they went ahead and started occupying the land that was partitioned for them. In 1948, Israel became a country with their leader, David Ben. Now, this was the first Jewish state in 2,000 years. The Palestinians were not so happy about it because they felt that this was acquired through their dispossession. In 1949, Israel was given permanent control in all the lands and territories they had acquired. This led to the Palestinians in that region to flee and leave. Israel became a Jewish majority country. In June 1967, there was a 6-day strike between Egypt and Israel. And after that war, Israel acquired the West Bank, East Jerusalem from Jordan, Sinai Peninsula, the Gaza Strip from Egypt, and the Golan Heights from Syria. The Intifada took place in 1987, which means the shaking off. The Palestinians staying in the Gaza Strip and West Bank rose up against the Israel government. The Oslo I Accord was signed in 1993 between the Israel leader and the Palestinian leader. This was a peace treaty. This handshake got them the Nobel Prize. This was meant to let the Palestinians in Gaza and West Bank have their own free governance. The Oslo II Accord was signed in 1995. This led to the Israel troops leaving 6 cities, 450 towns in both West Bank and Gaza. Now today, West Bank and Gaza are Palestinian states, while in West Bank we have 3 million Palestinians and we have 500,000 Jews. Question is, what is the bone of contention? Number one, the Palestinians want the refugees, their families, the people that were displaced in 1946 in these other regions to come back to their original land, which is now acquired by Israel. Number two, Israel will not allow Palestinians to have East Jerusalem as their capital. The Hamas have occupied Gaza for a very long time. The group was formed in 1986. They won the election in 2006. The group is known as a terrorist group by the Western countries. Hamas has declared war on Israel due to their ties with Iran, allegedly. Saudi Arabia and Israel were about to sign a peace treaty, and Iran is not so happy about this because Saudi Arabia is an Arab state. Now, Israel has retaliated back, and they want to retaliate directly into Iran. Now, if this happens, this is going to be the biggest world war we have not seen in centuries. This is a history. I am Valerie. Till next time. Bye-bye.